there people here who have not done Chenrezig practice before at all? No, that's fine, that's good. I just need to know how large to stretch. And how many would say that they're not so familiar? Okay, a few people not so familiar. Good. Let's take a moment and go back to the practice that we were doing before, in the first session. Particularly go back to the aspect of resting the attention on the flow of whatever arises in experience. This includes everything. So we don't make an exception for thoughts or feelings. It's not the intention to have thoughts to categorize things, but those thoughts may arise, but they're just another experience. If we train in this way over and over again, both on the cushion and in between sessions, we can become familiar with all the range of experiences that are part of what we use to compose our sense of who we are, our sense of the environment that we're in, our sense of the identity of others. Most of the time, probably very rarely, do we acknowledge the extent of our authorship in the whole thing, or even just the fact that these are experiences that arise. It's very helpful to train in this way so that we have some deeper and deeper familiarization with how experience unfolds. And as we look deeper and deeper, we can see the intimacy of awareness and experience. Generally, we have to slow down quite a bit for this to unfold. Recognizing experience as experience is a door to recognizing how it is that experience arises in awareness. How experience is actually, you could say, the play of awareness, the display. This gradual settling and gradual deepening of intimacy is a very important part of our practice. The logic of it, when we look carefully, is pretty clear. If I look more carefully, I become more deeply familiar. The more deeply familiar I become, the more clarity and insight will arise. It's worth reminding ourselves when we engage in Vajrayana practices that when we engage in these practices, we are taking an opportunity to step directly into the perspective where all the play of experience is acknowledged from the beginning as the play of the mind. You could say in our ordinary approach to our experience that we are imagining our reality. We're imagining ourselves. Particularly if you focus on the word sort of the image, imaging ourselves, imaging our reality, creating this picture. In the practice of Chenrezig, we have the opportunity to become familiar with how it can look. If even our very being, our body, our mental activity, our speech, everything about us not only was recognized as emanating as the play of the mind, but in this clarity of emanation, a complete lack of fixation on ordinary hopes and fears. And in that absence of ordinary hope and fear, all that arises in that free play is of benefit. Nothing disappears, you could say. No beings disappear. You could say our ordinary sense of I or we disappears, but it's not an absence. It's not an absence of anything other than the confusion about who we are. In the cycle of the practice, we always, of course, start with refuge and bodhicitta. And then there's a cycle of arising as the bodhisattva. There's the cycle of activity, resting with the active way of being of the bodhisattva. Then there's the dissolution. This is what the cycle of life after life would look like from the point of view of a stream of being motivated entirely from bodhicitta. Even coming into being is an act of bodhicitta. Taking on a form, manifesting activity. Letting go of the form. Our usual sense of ourselves is much more narrow. This birth is sort of this kind of cosmic accident that happened. And here we are. And we kind of rush about in our speedy way. All our perceptions, all our activity, you could say driven by a fundamental confusion about things. So in the practice of Chenrezig, we can just step out of that completely. And we have the opportunity to connect with this, you could say, the bare spark of bodhicitta. Connect with that as primary motivating dynamic. Connect with a way of being that is, in all aspects of its experience, an expression of bodhicitta. So at the beginning, when we go for refuge and remind ourselves of bodhicitta, in this practice, we're taking you could say we're not going at it incrementally. We're going at it from perspective of everything that arises, our whole being, all our experience, all of that is 100% the expression of bodhicitta. So, in order to have more time with the practice and less time with me talking, which is beneficial to both of us, we'll begin on page 11. And for those of you who don't know the practical trick, we'll just be doing the root text, and to go back and forth, if you say, oh, we're going to start on page 11, and we'll go along, and we'll just do the homage. And so you can pull out page 11 to one side. And we're going to do just the root text. So then we go, I think it's to page 31. So you just pull 31 off to the side. And so we'll just be doing the parts for the refuge and bodhicitta, the visualization and the praise. And then we'll go to page 31, which is the kind of the setup for doing the mantra. And then when we do the dedication, we'll only do the dedication on page 33. And when we're doing the mantra, I will offer some guided visualization. So don't slam on the brakes. Just continue on with a gentle recitation of the mantra. And you can follow the guided visualization if it's helpful. So we'll do this in we'll do this in English this time. And if I indicate, we can pause. So beginning with the refuge in bodhicitta, imagining Chenrezig in space in front, surrounded by all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and we're surrounded by all sentient beings. And if you ever need a reminder as to the general form of Chenrezig, I brought the tanka out. And sometimes it's good in the practice, and particularly in between the practice, just to gaze at the image and remind yourself of the details of the image. But for the visualization with refuge in bodhicitta, bringing to mind mainly the sense of presence of the enlightened one, Chenrezig, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, a brilliant presence, the activity manifesting as the radiance of light that touches us. Touches all beings. So we'll do the refuge in bodhicitta, and then we'll pause for a moment.
Until enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the excellent assembly. Through the merit of generosity and other virtues, may I accomplish Buddhahood for the benefit of beings. Until enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the excellent assembly. Through the merit of generosity and other virtues, may I accomplish Buddhahood for the benefit of beings. Until enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the excellent assembly. Through the merit of generosity and other virtues, may I accomplish Buddhahood for the benefit of beings.
So holding the presence of Chenrezig in space in front for a moment, just bring the sense of the intensity of that brilliant presence vividly to mind, and then just allow it to evaporate like a rainbow evaporating in a clear sky. Then we begin the visualization. Bring to mind free on the crown of our head, lotus and moon. Free radiates brilliant light, an offering to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The light returns, light emanates, touching all sentient beings. All beings appearing, lotus, moon seed, free, radiating light. The free transforms into Chenrezig. Now we'll recite.
On the crown of myself and sentient beings, pervasive as space, is a lotus and moon seed. From the free appears the noble Chenrezig, clear, white, and radiating five-colored light. Smiling and gazing with compassionate eyes, the first pair of his four hands are joined together. The lower two hold a crystal mala and a white lotus. Adorned with jewels and silk, he wears a deerskin upper garment. His head ornament is Amitabha, and his two legs sit in the Vajrasana. A stainless moon supports his back. He is the embodiment and essence of all sources of refuge.
So, collecting the intention. When practicing together, we often go quickly from one section to the next, but it's helpful to pause. Bringing the sense of presence of the Bodhisattva, the radiance which touches all beings. A kind of radiance that touches every aspect of confusion, suffering, anxiety. And in that touching, it acts like a solvent. Dissolving anxiety, untangling the knots of confusion. Being present with this activity. we can generate the wish that we too would wish to embody this kind of presence, this kind of capacity. With this, we offer praises.
Noble One, untainted by the mire, your form is luminous white. A perfect awakened one adorns your head. With the eyes of compassion, you gaze upon beings. To Chenrezig we bow. Noble One, untainted by the mire, your form is luminous white. A perfect awakened one adorns your head. With the eyes of compassion, you gaze upon beings. To Chenrezig we bow. Noble One, untainted by the mire, your form is luminous white. A perfect awakened one adorns your head. With the eyes of compassion, you gaze upon beings. To Chenrezig we bow.
Moving to page 31. And again, returning to that sense of continuity, the praise that you just engendered.
By praying one pointedly in this manner, light radiates from the body of the Noble One and purifies impure karma, appearance, and deluded mind. The outer environment becomes the realm of Dewa Chen. The body, speech, and mind of the inhabitants become the exalted body, speech, and mind of the powerful Chenrezig. Appearance, sound, and awareness are inseparable with emptiness.
So we can turn the page. Take a moment. The presence of Chenrezig, as the recitation said, by praying one pointedly in this manner. Recognizing the profound universal depth of the wish for the freedom for suffering. All beings are open to this kind of freedom, as we are too. And in this openness, if we recognize this profound way of being, we too can become Chenrezig. So taking on the form of Chenrezig, we let the mind settle on ourself as Chenrezig. And body white, brilliant, rainbow-like. Seated cross-legged, with forearms, two hands joined at the heart, holding a blue wish-fulfilling gem. right hand holding crystal rosary, left hand holding the lotus. A red silk skirt as a robe. A 5-jeweled crown. In the heart, there is the seed syllable again. If you know it, you can visualize the free. If not, just the brilliant, radiating spark. We are in the form of Chenrezig, all beings filling space in the form of Chenrezig. So we'll recite the mantra together. As the mantra comes to an end, forms of all beings, as Chenrezig, the environment, all dissolve into radiant streams of light that are absorbed into Chenrezig on the crown of our heads. That form blazes into radiant light which dissolves. Our form is Chenrezig. Our form is Chenrezig. Dissolves from the head down and the legs up. Just dissolving, light dissolving into the center, into the seed syllable free. Just allow the mind to dissolve into the seed syllable free. Blazing, brilliant, getting smaller and smaller. Disappearing into itself. And rest. Out of the space, we recognize our ordinary form as the play of the mind. Our speech is the play of the mind. Our thought is the play of the mind. All this to display of bodhicitta, all this in essence, Chenrezig.
The apparitional bodies of myself and others are the body of the Noble One. Sounds are the melody of the 6 syllables. Thought and memory are waves of great intrinsic awareness. By this virtue may I quickly accomplish the state of powerful Chenrezig and establish all beings without exception on that level.
To carry the practice into this time between sessions, if you know some particular method that you like, please do it. you wish, just recite the mantra quietly. You can also imagine the presence of Chenrezig, the essence of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and your root teacher, just as present, the crown of your head as you go about. So we'll come back, and when it seems like we're done with what we need to do,